Welcome back to the Chipola pregame show. Today we have Coach Hendricks with Chipola Softball.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Last time you were here, we were wrapping up the conference season. The conference season has officially ended. How did everything wrap up for Chipola Softball?
Well, conference-wise, we ended up finishing first. We won the Panhandle Conference. This is the sixth time in 10 years for me. Miss Sanders was here a year before me,
Right.
So 6 out of 11 for her. And then we ended up with 11 kids on the Panhandle Conference, all-tournament team.
Okay. Now, when conference started back in first couple weeks of March, you always, as a coach, have anticipations of how teams are going to end up. We know that in softball in the state of Florida, that 4 out of the top 5 in the Panhandle Conference advanced to the state tournament. How did, now that we had 6 weeks of conference play, how did everything end up? Were there some surprises?
Well, there was a bunch of surprises. Up until the last week, there was 3 teams that had a chance to stay at home. Mm-hmm. We ended up winning outright, pretty handily. I don't want to say pretty easy, but just game-wise, it was easy.
Right.
Ended up with Northwest Florida ended up second in the Panhandle Conference. Pensacola ended up third, and TCC ended up fourth. Going into the last week, Northwest was last, trying to get into the state tournament. And they pulled it out and ended up making a 3-way tie for second place, I guess. And through the head-to-head overall, they ended up, placing third or second. Which was, for us, a surprise. Going in, Northwest is athletic. They've got a bunch of athletic kids. They kind of scared us a little bit. We ended up sweeping them all 4 games. Gulf Coast, who ended up not making it into the state tournament, was a team that beat us. We had 3 losses, and they were one of the teams that beat us. Same with Pensacola, same with TCC. TCC's got better pitching, just offensively they didn't do much. Pensacola's kind of, we've got, 2 or 3 kids that can beat you, and if they get on base, they can beat you.
You'd mentioned kind of having maybe what would be called an easy road through conference, wrapping conference play up as early as you did. Mm-hmm. In terms of thinking ahead going into the state tournament, mentally being prepared, having to go through a tough row at the state tournament. State tournament's only 3 days, and if you win, you go on. But games are right behind each other. Having an easy road during conference, how do you think that prepares you for state?
Good and bad. Good that we wrapped up the Panhandle Conference so soon because we got to, we won it. But,
right.
But bad because the last, 3 weeks we haven't played for anything other than pride. Mm-hmm. We haven't had that mentality of, having to play to win. Going into the state tournament now, it's what you do right now. The past season means nothing. Everybody's batting 0, and you're going to win a state championship. Mm-hmm. The same thing. You go there, and I've said this probably every year. We're good enough to win the national tournament. We're bad enough to go 0-2, and that's and that's the way it is. Just with the 2-week layoff, we'll find out, Friday morning.
With the 2-week layoff, does your practices, do they seem to change during the 2 weeks off as it did during conference? Obviously, your practices change in conference play as opposed to non-conference. How do you use that 2-week period to kind of stay fresh and also stay loose, but also have competitive practices?
It's hard. You've got to balance it. And we did some stuff, and we always do, to where we play some games, some hydration games, to where they got to drink water and just get hydrated through this rest period. But you're also trying to balance it with a competitive edge,
right?
And that's something that it's kind of hard to stay with. Practice gets boring,
right?
And it doesn't matter how you try to break it up. Give them a couple of days off after the season, to get rejuvenated. But it's hard to get them mentally focused to practice. Mm-hmm. And that's where, and I think we've done a good job. The players done a good job this season doing this. So I'm excited going into the state tournament.
Well, before we get down to the state tournament, you had some postseason awards given out this last week. In the Panhandle Conference, you had, I believe, 11 players named to the all-conference team. The coach of the year was Coach Hendricks. I say the coaching staff of the year came from Chipola because we know it is a group effort. Would you like to run down some of those all-conference selections?
Yeah, we had, Belinda was Coach of the Year in the Panhandle Conference. You had Jessica Elliott, Jake, was Pitcher of the Year, and she was also, she was Pitcher of the Conference, and then she was also Pitcher of the Year in the conference. So she was first team all-conference. You had Sierra Jones, Courtney Davis in the infield. You had Shelby Clark and BB Santos, Gabriela Santos, in the outfield. Catcher, you had Savannah Riken, who was also first team. And you had the at-large, or DP in our state, was Madison Reagan, who's Rocky. Second team, you had Brashanti Darius and Jenna Reeves, infielders, Tori McDaniel as an outfielder, and Ilona Andringa as a pitcher. And the state just came out, and we've got 3 on the all-state first team.
Great.
We've got Jessica as a pitcher, Rocky as a DP, and Savannah as a catcher. That came out as first team all-state, so they'll have a chance to be an All-American.
That's right, and that's awesome. Well, now as we transition into the state tournament, for our fans at home, they're used to the state tournament being in Pensacola for the last 3 years. It was an easy drive over to come over and support. This year it's a little further down south, down in Vero Beach. If no one knows where Vero Beach is, if you know where Sarasota is, go to the other side of Florida, and it's there. So first time in Sarasota since you've been at Chipola, and Coach Hendricks has been at Chipola. She has won at each different venue, won a state title. So let's talk about the new venue and the anticipations of that.
Well, the new venue, it's at Vero Beach. It's at Dodgertown. So it's the old spring training Dodger fields that they converted to softball fields. And the hotel that we're staying in is actually, I think, 100 yards from the fields. So you actually can walk out the back door to the fields, which is exciting for our kids, exciting for us. We've never been there. It's maintained by Treasure Coast. So, I think it's going to be a great spot to have. It's 7.5 hours away, though.
That's right. It's a little bit of a drive. First round opponent looks like, according to the brackets, it's going to be St. John's River, and then winning that game will get you either Hillsboro or Indian River. Indian River is the host site.
They are, and even in the first game, we've got some interest in the first game because the shortstop that we inherited at the break, Courtney Davis, was a transfer from St. John's. So it was mutually agreed upon that if we played them this year, that she wouldn't play. So we're going into the first game of the state tournament without our starting shortstop, our number 2 hitter. I think she hit .405, all conference, or she was first team all conference. But that's they let her come, so we're okay with that.
That's right.
And then the second game, win or lose, and hopefully a win, but you can match up with Hillsboro, who's we beat them 2-1 and 4-3, I think, this year. Or Indian River, who's ranked ahead of us in the national polls. So it's not something that's going to be easy, but it's what I told the players the other day, and I think I said it on the radio, and I've heard it from Ric Flair, was to be the best, you got to beat the best. So
that's right.
First game or last game, you're going to have to beat them.
And that's the mentality I know going forward the coaching staff will have. Does the coaching-wise, does it change any once you get down there to the actual venue as opposed to the last 2 weeks? Will you emphasize specific things once you're there, or how does scouting come into play once you get into the tournament?
We've never, in the whole time we've been here, we've never scouted too much. We're going to do what we do. If we can perfect what we do, then we've got a chance to win the ball game at the end. And it doesn't matter who we play, and that's going through the fall, through the spring season. We might have an idea of kind of what pitching we're going to see or something, but scouting we don't do a lot of. We're going to focus on us, and try to perfect what we do. And going into the state tournament, it will, the rest of the season was kind of, and I don't want to say laid back, but a little laid back. Now it's, it's win or go home.
Right.
And then, so we're going to, put some emphasis on just, everybody's batting a 0. It doesn't matter if you, bat 1,000 for the state tournament and lose, or you bat 0 and win. It's all about wins.
That's right. That's right. Well, Coach, we appreciate you coming on today. First game is Friday morning down in Vero Beach. You can see those games live on ihigh.com. There'll also be a link on ChipolaAthletics.com. And Clinton and Mike.
Yep.
Clint Cox and Mike Miller will be down there covering the games on WJAQ 100.9 on your radio dial. Coach, once again, thanks for coming back. We'll see you down in Vero Beach.
Thanks for having me.